Yo, what's up everybody? It's your boy Slim, aka Mr. Different, back with another video. We're gonna try to do this again because I already recorded this, but I forgot to hit record on OBS. But today we're going to talk about how to master your beats, and I will be making another video also after this. I don't know what day yet, probably a couple days after, where I'll be talking about mastering songs with vocals and all that. But this video is strictly for your beats. If you want to put them up on SoundCloud, send them off the artist, put them up on your YouTube, you know, whatever you sell your beat set, stuff like that. So this will help make sure your beats sound as full and as impactful and as loud as they possibly can without being distorted and stuff like that. So that's what this video is all about. So if you can, follow me Instagram, Twitter, and SoundCloud, MrDifferentTV, and let's jump right to it. But before we get into that, I do want to say I will be using Ozone 8 Advanced for this tutorial, but you do not need any third-party plugins or Ozone to do this. Just use whatever it is that is the equivalent to what I'm using. But I will put a link in the description below where you can pick up Ozone 8. I think it's on half off right now on Plugin Boutique, and also I'll put a link to Splice as well because they have a deal going on over there as well where you can pay per month to own it. So let's jump right to it, and here it is. So here we are right now in Studio One. I have Ozone 8 Advanced set up, and I also have FabFilter Pro L because that's going to also be my second limiter, and I'll explain that in a little bit. And plus my metering, and you know, so I can see my levels and where my loudness is. So let's just play this beat real quick so you kind of hear what it sounds like. I'll make sure everything's bypassed so nothing's being played. And yeah, let's go master it. I think that's enough of that. So we're going to be working with that section right there. And you want to start with the loudest part of your section. That's where you want to try to master it at, because that's where, you know, the most energy is going to be at. And that will make sure that when when the song or whatever part it gets to that part of the song, it will be mastered to its fullest potential. So let's dive right into it. So first off, I like to check my levels and make sure my levels are correct. So with Pro L2, it has different metering functions. It has the K scale, which I love to use, and it also has loudness metering as well. Now the K scale basically just kind of helps you get negative 12 dB of headroom. So if I always mix using the K scale, so I can make sure I at least have negative 12 dB of headroom. Or you can use a regular meter. Just keep in mind, I say between negative 12 and negative 6 is a good place to have your headroom. That way you can push it and make it louder and get it close to 0 as possible. So just keep that in mind, not a rule of thumb. And also, this is very suggested. This is just my workflow. There is no right or wrong way to master your beat. You may agree with some things I do, you may disagree with something I do, but just do what works for you. Hopefully these techniques will help you better your mastering when you do it. So as we can see, when I play the beat, it's right in that 0 mark, which if I turn to a regular metering, it should be right below 12, right below 10. So it is about negative 12 dB. And you want to pay attention to your RMS levels, not your peak levels, because your peaks are only going to happen for a split second or whatever. But your RMS is the average volume of the entire track. So let's get to start mastering this beat. So I'm going to switch this to loudness so we can use loudness. I will be using the LUFS system, and we'll talk about that a little bit later. But basically, that's just a standardized way streaming sites normalize their music. So negative 14 is usually Spotify, Apple Music, Tidal, stuff like that, and then negative 12 is like YouTube, and then negative 9 is like for CD mastering, which we're gonna be aiming for CD because you want to make sure your stuff is a little bit louder. That way you can bring it down, and when they bring it down and normalize it, it'll be, you know, at a good volume compared to all the other songs out there. So just try to aim a little louder when you're doing this, but to it, don't distort. So first off, I like to put a limiter on my track, and I like to see how loud I can actually make my master before it starts to distort. So I'm just gonna, you know, leave the ceiling at 0. I should put it like negative 0.3, and I'm gonna see how loud I can push this to where I get negative 9 LUFS. So let's do that. And I'll just switch it to the modern mode right here, because I like that mode. But yeah, say any limiter will work. So about -5 on the on my threshold, on my limiter is gonna get me to about -9 LUFS. So I did keep that in mind for when I'm mastering, because I'm gonna be using that number to, you know, continue. But I'm gonna leave my limiter on for now, because I mean it works. There's nothing wrong with it, so I'm gonna leave that on. Go to my next step, which is EQing. Well, no, tell you that. EQ second. We're going to compress first, then we'll EQ. My bad. So I'm going to just throw in the dynamics right here, and then it's already set the way I like it. Usually when you put in this dynamics, it has, there you go, 4 bands. We're just going to be working with 1 band, so just make it 1 band so it's compressing the whole thing. And this is how I set my compressor. Now, depending on the genre of music, I'll set it between I set it between 2 and 4 to 1 on the ratio. You know, that's usually good for hip hop, R&B, stuff like that. You know, more bass heavy music. You can go higher if you're doing like heavy metal and stuff like that to really get squashed, but it's up to you. The attack, I always set my attack starting out at 30, and that's a kind of a slow, medium slow attack. Now, a fast attack will reduce the transients in your song or beat or whatever, and a slower attack will let more transients come by. So you want something a little more punchier, then you will have a slower attack. If you want to be a little bit more compressed or squashed, then you make a faster attack. And that's just, you know, up to artistic and how you feel about your song. And then when I set my release, based off the BPM of the song, and I set it to the rhythm. So this song is about 140 BPM. So to do the simple math, I'll show you right now. It's just 60,000 divided by the BPM, which is 140. And then I'll get, it didn't do it right. Oh, because all this, let's remove that. Let's just use the keypad. 60,000 divided by 140. And I'll get about 428 milliseconds, 0.5 milliseconds. We can round up to 29. I'll just keep it 28. And that's going to be the release. That's going to go along with the beat. So I'm going to set that to 428 milliseconds. And now the release is going to go with the beat and kind of pump with the beat. So it's going to make it sound a little bit more smooth and transparent. So now let's go ahead and get some compression going in. I'm going to try to aim for about -2 to -3 dB of gain reduction. And then, yeah, so let's just go ahead and do that. So there you go. And then I'm going to put it on auto gain, because I said this is just a beat. You can't boost the gain reduction. Once you compress, you do want to bring back of your makeup gain. I'm just going to put on auto to save me time. And also just, it's an instrumental, so it really doesn't matter. And that should bring it to a nice volume. And also with this one, I will set the high pass filter in it. If your compressor doesn't have this in it, don't worry about it. But this will just make sure that when I set it, anything above wherever I set it at is going to be affecting the compressor. Anything below it is not going to be. So at 200 hertz, I don't want nothing to be compressed. So my lows and my 808s and sub frequencies, I don't want to trigger my compressor. Anything above, like my kick and above, I want to trigger the compressor. And that's what I'm doing right there. So I got turned on. And now that's the only thing that's going to be triggering. Anything above 200 hertz is going to trigger my compressor. Now I'm just going to bypass it real quick. I'm going to gain match it so you can hear what's it actually doing. That's one thing I like about Ozone 8. We hit the gain match function. Anytime you bypass, it will bring it to the original level that it was before it was bypassed, so you can do an apples to apple comparison. Very subtle, makes it a little bit tighter, something like that. I said it'd be different depending on what your song is, your material is, and how you mixed it. It would be a bigger or a lesser effect depending on that, and also how much your ratio is as well. So keep that in mind. Every song is different. No one way is correct. So now that I did that, we're gonna move on to my next step, which is EQing. So I'm putting my EQ, and the only thing I do with my EQ is I just cut my lows for beats anyway. For just beats, we'll do 20 hertz, and for the highs, we'll do 20 kilohertz. And I'm not gonna go too much into EQing in this video, because like I said, when it comes to instrumentals, I just like to make sure, you know, it just kind of got a nice little cut in there. I could scoop out some of the mids and high mids for vocals, but I'll leave that to the mixing phase. When it comes to the instruments, I just want to make sure that is a little cleaned up. So let's keep it simple there and keep it moving. You don't have to do that. You don't even have to EQ if you don't want to, unless you want to add some more bass or anything like that. Then yeah, you definitely can. I think this beat has enough of where I want in the mix. I did a lot of the EQ in the mixing phase, so I don't have to do too much in this part. Yeah, it sounds just the way I want to, so I'm fine with that. Next up, I'm going to add some stereo widening effects. So any type of stereo widening effect, you can use all kinds of some by ways. There's stock plugins, there's free plugins. I'm just going to use the Imager because I really like it. It has, oh, excuse me, it has multiple bands on there, so I can, you know, affect different bands. And yeah, so I'm just going to use the learn feature, let it learn the frequencies, and then yeah, we're going to add some stereo widening. All right, I'm gonna take away this top band because I don't really need that one. And then we'll work with 3 bands. So let's just go ahead and solo the low end. And it's straight mono. And one thing to realize, one thing I had to learn that I learned is the vector scope. Really pay attention to it. Now, anything that goes below 0 or goes negative or below 0 means it's out of phase. So you want to make sure that when you're, you know, making stuff more stereo, that you're keeping it not out of phase. So make sure it just does not go below 0. I think 0 is nice and where it needs to be. It's stereo. +1 is mono, and then anything I think like below that is out of phase. So I think that's how it go. But just keep in mind, anything below 0 is out of phase. I'm just gonna make sure everything just stays in that mono space, especially the low one, because that's what you want anyway. Then we go to the mid frequencies. Make it a little bit wider. See how it's dipping below 0? That means it's actually going out of phase, and just a better representation. When you see that red line, it means it's going out of phase. Right there is going out of phase. So we just need about, I say about 20 for that. And then for the high end, we'll just, you know, make a little spark, a little wider in the top end. So I like to push it as far as I can and then back it off just to kind of keep myself safe. And then now we should have a little bit of a wider song, a beat instrumental. So that works pretty good. It's not much, like I said, because there's no vocals in it. If you had vocals in your beat, it would be a lot wider. You can actually hear that stereo separation and all that, especially you got stuff paying really hard, left and hard, right. It makes a huge difference. It's just an instrumental. We just want it a little bit wide, nothing special there. Last but not least, I'm going to add in a exciter. Any type of saturation plugin will work here. You can use tape emulations. You can use preamp emulations. You can use console emulations. You can use straight distortion if you want to. Whatever works for you works. I just say add a little bit of saturation will make your song just that much more polished, because it adds a little bit of non-linear imperfections and good stuff. So let's go ahead and do that. So I'm just going to do the learn function once again to kind of just find the bands for me, and then I'm just going to add some saturation to each band. Now, if yours don't have a multi-band saturator, that's cool. You can use a single band, don't really matter. But what I like to do is I like to crank it up as far as I can go, find the right sound, and then dial it back. So I'm gonna do that right now. Watch me crank it up to the max, find a good sounding effect, and then dial it back. And you'll see that's how I do it. Nice. Let's go to the next band. right, now I'm gonna bypass it before after. It should be a pretty nice difference. You should be able to hear it. So hopefully listen to it on headphones or speakers, because that's how you're really gonna hear it. So now I'm gonna bypass it and unbypass it, and let's see what this saturation is really doing. See how it just kind of adds that little bit of distortion in each of the bands and each of the frequencies. It just kind of fills it out a little bit and makes it sound less sterile and less digital. So that's all the saturation is. So you see, you don't have to have this exact saturator, but any type of saturation plugin will work. Saturation is an amazing plugin to really turn any sound into a better sound. So now that I have that, I'm just going to set my final limiter. Let's say this is going to be my first limiter. So I'm going to set this limiter to about, let's see. So all I can do is say the -4 dB, which is good. Leave it alone at that. I don't really do too much with my ceiling, but my second limiter is going to be my safety limiter. So I set that to -1. That just keeps it from, you know, having them initial peaks that go past 0. It just kind of is a kind of a safety net, and you should always do that. A lot of professionals do that. A lot of people do that. Just a little safety net. And then if I need to add dithering, anything like that, I definitely can. Like if I'm sending for 16-bit or whatever, dithering. But I only really do that if I am actually making a song that's going to be released to Spotify, Apple Music, iTunes, all that type of stuff, or being distributed that way. That's the only time I worry about dithering. If it's just an instrumental, don't worry about it because there'll be dithering at the end. So now let's do a before and after, and then I also do an ungain match before and after so you can see. So this is just a before and after. Now this is an ungain match before and after. And yeah, that's it. Pretty much that's how it is. That's how I go about mastering my beats. I add a compressor, I EQ it a little bit, give a little bit of widening, add a little bit of saturation, and then set my limiters, and that's it. So it's that simple. There's nothing too technical with it or too advanced with it. It just kind of helps to get a very good overall sound. And when I put it up on Instagram, I put up on YouTube, I put up anything like that, or send it out to an artist, it's gonna be nice, loud, and punchy for the artist, and they're gonna really enjoy it. And like I said, if they wanted the track out, they get the track outs. But if they want to use this one, they like it, whatever, boom, it sounds good, I like it, and it works. So yeah, I like to see what you guys think about this. Do you guys use these techniques? If you do anything different, leave it in the comments below. I like to see what you guys do as well. What do you think about it? How do you go about mastering all that good stuff? Let's have a discussion at the bottom of the comments. Also, if you got any questions, please leave them in the comments below, and I'll try to answer as many as I possibly can. So yeah, like I said, you don't need what I use today. Use whatever it is that's equivalent to it and get the job done. So with that being said, I hope you guys enjoy. Like always, y'all know who it is, your boy Slim, aka Mr. Different. Not motivated by the money, but the like, comment, subscribe, and views. And with that being said, I hope you guys enjoy like always, and I will catch you guys in the next video where we actually master a full song. Have a good one, everybody.